Well, welcome. So first of all, my name is Sam Parsons, and this is React Minneapolis, and this is our first kickoff. So welcome. So glad you guys came. I'm one of the organizers, and we also have Justin and Nate as well. So we're just glad to be here and putting things together and kick things off. So just a couple of things. If you're still thirsty, go ahead and grab some more or more food. Go ahead and do that. You can do that in the middle of the talking. That's not a big deal. Also, toilets, restrooms, if you haven't found them, they're in the back corner over here. And fire exits, head out that door as fast as you can if there's any issues. So just get the basics. Yeah, so we're going to kick off. So this is React Minneapolis. There's a Wi-Fi password here if you need to get logged in. I'll have this up for a couple of minutes. And welcome to Object Partners Incorporated. So this is Object Partners headquarters. And I work for Object Partners, as does Justin and Nate. And Object Partners is sponsoring this event. So they've helped provide us the pizza, the beer on tap. If you haven't had any, go ahead and grab some. It's right at the back in the kitchen. And also the drinks and everything. So yeah, big round of applause for Object Partners. So Object Partners is a consulting company specializing in Java, JVM technologies, and front-end JavaScript technologies, including Angular and React. So clients around about the Minneapolis-St. Paul area, and yeah, we're always looking for talent as well. So everyone got the Wi-Fi password? Who wanted it? Cool. So that's Object Partners. So yeah, so how we're going to do this is we're going to have a series of talks. We're going to switch this up from time to time in React Minneapolis. So sometimes we're going to have a couple of talks, sometimes it'll just be one, maybe sometimes we'll do a panel. We're really interested in your feedback about what sort of formats you guys would like. Maybe you'd like a workshop. Bring in your laptops and we'll work through building a small project together. So yeah, we're looking for your feedback. There's a form at the end, so make sure you fill that out and let us know what you're interested in. But today we're going to do 3 talks. So the idea is we're going to start off with just a kind of introduction to React and then go on to some other things. And the vision of this event is really to just gather the community together, people who are interested in React in a kind of a supportive place where you can share. If you're learning, that's great. Share what you've learned with other people. So it's not just like broadcasting, it's also peer-to-peer as well. So really encourage that. So without further ado, my talk is first. So I've got the intro one into creating a React app. So my talk is create a React app in 3 steps in 2 minutes. Might be a little bit hard because we're already a couple minutes in. But just recently, if you've ever created a React app, you'll know that sometimes it's actually kind of difficult and takes a long time to get set up initially with your project. And this has historically been the case. There's a whole ecosystem of different tools to pick from. Some are better than others. There's even more Stack Overflow posts about what's the best thing for different purposes. So Facebook actually came together and they had Dan Abramov create a tool called Createreactapp. And basically, if you've seen any posts about it, it allows you to install all those dependencies and get a React app started with 3 steps in about 2 minutes of installation time. I mean, that's the time is all waiting for NPM to load the dependencies. So I'm going to walk you guys through that, but we're going to skip the 2 minute of NPM dependencies because that's not exactly informative, and maybe you've seen that before. And also kind of a word of kind of background. If you're brand new to React, I'd be happy to talk to you kind of about some of the deeper concepts or the newer things. I'm just kind of gloss over them a little bit and just kind of show you how fast it is to create a React app today. And that's useful not just as a beginner, which some of you may be, but it's also useful if you're kind of doing it a lot and you just want to create a new app quickly. And so it's a pretty useful tool. So what we're going to do is we're going to put together a website for React Minneapolis. So here's the website. We're going to get started, 2 minutes roughly, to get the basics up. And then we're going to add content, features, and we're going to deploy at the same time. So here is the React Minneapolis.io website. So you should build a React app. That's what it says right now. You can go there, reactmpls.io. So we're going to use Createreactapp. So it has a couple of really cool features. So it's zero config. So out of the box, you don't really have to configure anything to get the app up and running. It's got support for ES6. So a lot of you have been using, if you've already created a React app, you'll be using ES6 probably, which is the latest flavor of JavaScript. And it also has a feature for code linting automatically, so catching errors in your JavaScript. That's called linting. So kind of like you might lint and remove all of the dirt from your clothes. Code linting is about removing bugs from your code. So also, it's got the ability to declare CSS dependencies out of the box. So you just declare those as in your JavaScript, and that includes them. And it's also got a local dev server, so you can do local testing. So this is like all right out of the gate. You've got a local dev server up and running. You've got scripts for creating a production version of your app as you're building it. And you also have unit tests as well. This is a feature they just added in the last month or so. And finally, kind of one of the more interesting features is the ability to, after you set that up and kind of have the basics going, is to eject. And so you can then leave this sort of zero config land and take over the configs yourself. So we're actually going to show you just how to do that. So all of these steps, maybe skipping the testing one, we'll actually just kind of walk through. So and again, it was created by Dan Abramov. He's a member of the React team, right kind of at the core of development on React and Redux. So step one, really, really simple. You install globally the Createreactapp. So this makes those scripts available to you for installing and creating new apps. Second step is you go to a directory in your terminal or shell, and you create Reactapp, and then type the name of the folder. So that's what we are going to do, create reactmpls.io. And then you change directory to that folder and NPM Start. So this is where we're going to kind of catch in. I'm going to show you the code for this. So right here we have essentially what the results would be if you had just typed create React app MPLS, right? So this is the contents. This is what's shown is right here. OK, so and I'm going to walk you through just kind of the basics in the directory here. So we'll open up an editor with the contents. And let me know, can you guys see that all fairly well? I'm going to zoom in really big here, hopefully. All right, can everyone see that? Cool. So this is called the package.json. This kind of gives you the basics to starting your server. That's the command you can run. Build, that gives you your production build. Test runs all of the tests in your app. And eject is when you say, OK, I'm done with using the cool zero config. I want to take over. And the core of the application is in just these small set of files. So if you've ever used another React app, you'll notice there's normally tons of files. And this is really bare bones simplified. So here's the entry point. This is what kicks it all off. You include React, and then you include this app folder, or sorry, this app component, and then you render it to the DOM. So we're going to kick off here into there, NPM Start. So this is the dev server running. So you hit that, gets going, and then opens up your browser to point at it as well at the same time. So here we are. Here's the basic Createreactapp, all set up and ready to go. So looking at the code and the code structure, that comes in here. And then we open up the app component. So the app component has all the text right here. So welcome to React. To get started, edit this. So we can just put some text in there, hit save, go back to here, and all of that text I added in there is just shown to you. So we probably would remove all of that and say, hello, React Minneapolis. And that rebuilds it right away for you behind the scenes, and hello, React Minneapolis. So there we are. We've got our basic app up and running with a local dev server. So we can also do a build. So if we run npm build, npm run build, that would create the optimized production version. So this is what you would deploy, because if in the dev server it's all really large JavaScript files, and this gets it all set up so that you can deploy it live. And so if we look here in the editor, we'll see that it puts all of this information here in the build folder, and this is the compiled React app. So you've got an index HTML, and all your static assets are built right there. So what we're going to do is we're going to kind of fast forward and build a React app through a series of steps. So I've got all of them saved here in Git. I don't know if you're familiar with that. It's a great way to store code revisions. And so we're on step 1. We're going to check out step 2. So this adds some required dependencies for our tool. So I added a couple of them. This is a library for loading up external files, bootstrap for styling, March for processing Markdown files, and that's about it. Oh, and one more, React router. So I installed those dependencies. That was step 1, or step 2, I should say. Step 1 was installing. So now let's get step 3 going. OK, so now we're going to update the app styles, typography, and we're going to include Bootstrap in our index file. So that's in here. So what we've done here is we've imported Bootstrap. So like I mentioned, you can just import your CSS directly in JavaScript. That's how you do it, right here. And that means that it will be built into the files that Createreactapp builds for you. I've also changed some things here. So our basic file, our basic component here for the application, so this is kind of the frame, the wrapper, is now populated with some information about React Minneapolis, a tagline, and some links that won't work yet. And I've also updated the CSS file to be a little more customized. So we have a look at that. We now have, and that's because it's automatically running behind the scenes, it automatically refreshed this page as soon as I check that code out. And here's our kind of styled website. So now we're going to include React Router and a basic routing config. So if you've ever done that before, React Router allows you to kind of have the feel like browsing around between different pages within your React app. So here we had to include some dependencies from React Router. And then we had to put in a config here which says, OK, set up the router. The main core component is the app one, and then the default one, if no one other one is selected, is the homepage one. So let's have a look. That gives us the homepage one loaded right here in the app component, and I've also created that here as part of that checkout. So here's some text. It says, "Hello, welcome here. Here's when the next meetup is." So if you scroll down, you can see. And now we're going to add a dynamic page route. So this is all handled by, just very quickly, linking to here a sponsorship page. So back here in the app at the top, we see there's a sponsorship link here. And I've added basically a dynamic link here. There's no content that shows, but we're going to add that as part of our next step. So we can put in here just some random text, and it will try and show whatever text we put in right here. So this is kind of the name of our page, just as a basic beginning. So hello. Now, step 5, or step 6, we have to add some static content. So I added a folder here called content. In it, I put in sponsorship. And here's just some basic information about sponsorship. But it's not going to work yet. So we've got the content there. But this is a point where we hit kind of the edge of what we can do easily with Createreactapp. And so I wanted to show you how then you can eject that app. So that's one of the features of Createreactapp. and take control of the configs and set it up so that we can actually load these static items right here within the app. So that's going to require us to run, essentially, the command you run is npm run eject, but that's going to hit npm servers and take a while to run, so I'm just going to show you what that does, and we'll quit that here, and npm run here. So here we are, right exactly where we left off, but we've ejected. So what's happened is all of the config and all of the scripts have now been populated within our directory here. So we've got content is still there, but we also have these additional files that have all that content. So we now can edit these files. Rather than being behind a black box, we're free to edit them and update them. So what we're going to do is update the Webpack configs and put in our static file so that they get part of the build. So that is step 7 here. Step 7. So that's there. Step 8 is install a plugin that we're going to need and configure Webpack. So we've made some changes here, and very simple changes, but we had to include our own Webpack plugin for copying those static files into the build, and we also had to add a loader here. So this is what Createreactapp really helps you, is that most of the time you don't have to be going through all of the Webpack config and setting it all up. So right here is where we've got our copy Webpack. And so that copies our content into our production folder and into our live dev server. So now we should have all of our static content available. If I typed it right. Shared content. And static. Okay, let's have a look here. There's our page. And now we're going to load up that Markdown page right within this component here. So hopefully it all works well. Content failed to load. All right. Well, I probably don't have time to debug that, but the basics of that, you kind of get the idea of how you can eject and then start controlling your own config. So just to finish it up, we'll do one more step. So step 10. So this adds a deploy script right here in package. And that means that, I'll just show you quick what it does. That's going to build everything. We'll build everything, and then we make one small change, and then we'll push it to our website with Surge build. So we're going to run git build, and then we're going to run, yeah, sorry. It's probably the longest part. And npm run deploy once we're ready. So any questions quick about that? Sure.
What's normally the point where you can eject, if like you use Createreactapp and scaffolding to the project or something like that? Like, what's the point for you where you want to eject?
So Createreactapp is brand new. Just came out in the last 2 months. So I haven't used it to build a production app, apart from this one. But one of the, I think the places where I would use it is exactly when I need to modify like these core things like the Webpack development server, things like that. You just have to get your hands on those files and modify them, and there's no way around it. So that's kind of where you're just hit up against the limit of what you can get out of the box for free, essentially. So I think that's kind of the main thing. And I'm actually really happy that this example made me do that, because it's good to demonstrate what that looks like. A question?
I might have missed it, but the Createreactapp wasn't an NPM dependency, but you could still do production builds under it.
Yeah.
Is there a shell script or something that installs?
Yeah, so what it does is, initially, I've got here the previous one. So here's the package JSON that you see. The only dev dependencies are these React scripts. And so that's one node module that then includes all the other ones. So you don't see all of those dev dependencies. And as soon as you do then eject, you'll see in here like 48 different dependencies appear in your package JSON. So it kind of provides you a buffer layer from all of that and installs the latest versions that are compliant with each other for it. One more question, and then we'll move on. Yep.
So I think you said the testing's pretty new, right?
Yep.
What's their setup for that?
So they're using Jest, which is Facebook's own testing framework, instead of Mocha. The syntax of actually writing the test is really similar looking, and they just have overhauled Jest, so it actually runs a lot faster than it used to. So it might be worth checking out again, but I haven't actually used it, apart from just kind of like playing around with it here. So cool. Well, thanks. I'm going to move on, and Justin is going to be up next.